We'll call the Apopka Community Redevelopment Agency to order. We'll get right to the approval of minutes. We got CRA meeting minutes of July 17th and CRA meeting minutes of August 21st. A motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, Mi- Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
if I can, if we could take the minutes in chronological order, starting with July 17th, I would move that those minutes be approved as presented.
So we got a motion to approve the CRA meeting minutes of July 17th, 2024.
Okay, the only thing I would just want, which I did give the city clerk, is to correct the titles, because instead of mayor, it should be chair, and instead of commissioner, it should be member.
Okay.
Where is that?
In the
Alex?
minutes itself.
Oh, within the minute. Okay. Yeah, okay, I see it.
Okay. So we got a motion by member Drago, a second by member Velasquez. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now,
All right,
next,
Mayor, for the August meeting, which I attended, and member Williams was not present. So any reference in the minutes relative to member Williams being present or approving motions relative to resolutions need to be stricken and amended as such. So
Okay.
I would move, Mr. Mayor, that the minutes for August 21st, 2024 be amended to reflect Ms. Williams not being present and approved as presented.
so what we need to do then under the roll call would just be member Nikki Williams absent. Would that,
Yes, and
because
then,
then everything else then would follow.
There's a couple of motions.
no, there's motions that show Ms. Williams voting yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I will say the same thing,
Okay.
is that there's some references in there that refer to the mayor and
Okay.
commissioners.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
It should be chair and member.
All right, I'll add that to my amendment motion.
Okay. So we got a motion by member Drago, a second by
Second.
member Smith. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Public comment? Anybody from public? Come on, sure. Yeah, come on up, Commissioner.
Good evening. I wish you'd had this meeting tomorrow. After serving on the canvassing board until all hours last night, but I am here with you. I'm just happy that you're having this meeting today. And when reading the agenda, I just had a concern because it was about a year ago and I brought you the resolution, the approval of the extension, and you basically have yearly extensions with having to send your plans for approval to the Board of County Commissioners. That it said tonight on your agenda that you were going back to the 2017 update, and what was approved by us last year was all that work we had done a year ago with Jim Hitt. So hopefully that'll be straightened out. But if you choose to make any changes, the way I read this document is that it has to come back to the Board of County Commissioners for approval. My reason for being here is really, I'm behind you. I want this CRU to be successful, and I didn't want you to have a meeting and go that direction without realizing if you make substantial changes tonight, it has to come back before my board again for approval. And so I gave you the document. I highlighted for you the whereas on page 2. The delegation resolution provides that the plan shall not be modified without the express consent of the board, as evidenced by approving resolution that the city shall not deviate substantially from the project set forth in the plan without modifying the plan. And our concern as a board was not really what was in your plan, it's just that you achieve and you accomplish and you succeed with your plan. It wasn't so much what your plan was, and because that isn't the role of the county commission. But I just want to remind people that CRA dollars, how that works was 1993. It was a designation of the state of Florida to help blighted downtowns, blighted areas by taking money from the local county. It was an incremental. They would set the level of where you were back in 1993 and whatever increases you saw over the years, then that money, instead of going to the county, would stay with the city to continually make improvements to that area because we are in this together. The county, we want your downtown to be successful as well. And so I just wanted to remind you of that one thing, and I stand here just ready to listen to whatever plan changes you make today. Thank you.
Thank you. Would like to thank Linda for coming out as well. Thank you for coming out. How many years were you on the board? 4? Oh, just 1? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for coming out as well. All right, Bobby.
Good evening, Bobby Howell, Interim Executive Director of the CRA. It's my pleasure to present Luis Nieves Ruiz from the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council. He's going to give a presentation in regards to brownfields. Also with us this evening is Dr. Shakenya Jackson of the city staff, our grants coordinator, who is here in addition and could answer questions in relation to grants and stuff. But without further ado, Mr. Nieves Ruiz.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm really glad to be here this evening. Again, my name is Luis Nieves Ruiz. I'm the Director of Economic Development for the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council. And today I bring some amazing news for the city of Apopka. But before that, actually, I wanted to speak a little about who we are. The East Central Florida Regional Planning Council was founded in 1962. We are one of 10 similar councils in the state of Florida. And basically, we're tasked with providing technical assistance to local governments and organizations within our 8-county region. I would like to take a moment to thank Mayor Nelson for his service to the council for, was it 2 years? 2 years at the council. We definitely enjoyed those times, but we're very glad working with you again. So what is a brownfield? A brownfield is an abandoned commercial or industrial property. It could also be apartments where the future use is affected because there's either a real or perceived feeling that there's contamination. So usually when you have downtown areas that have been there for several years, usually you know the properties when you travel around. Well, the idea here, anything from a gas station, medical facilities to dry cleaners, auto repair shops, all factories, all landfills, golf courses, those all qualify. The purpose of the program is to basically, if we invest money in cleaning up or investing in these properties, it's gonna increase your local tax base, it facilitates job growth, and it's gonna protect your community. These are some examples for brownfields. The property, the 305 East 8th Street, was one of the properties we tackled. Last time, it was, I guess, a North Service Center was county owned, right? City owned, yeah, it was city owned.
City.
It was owned by the city, and we're able to tackle that. And I think we might be in the possibility, hopefully, affordable housing. Maybe we go in there, probably go there. The other ones that you know, some trail. But to give you an example, it's all industrial areas that have been abandoned, all commercial buildings that their life already passed, and you may want to do something there. And people just feel very eerie of investing because they think there might be problems with the property. So in 2021, after 5 years, we finally won our first brownfield grants at the council. It was a $600,000 grant, and these are provided by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. We actually surpassed the number of sites that we assessed. We impacted 22 properties across the region. Phase 1, Phase 2 assessments, and we also did our asbestos and property surveys, and we participated in over 20 community events. In Apopka, we actually invested close to $200,000. As you can see here, we impacted 7 sites. So we have 7 Phase 1 assessments. Then, if the property has what is recognized factors, you will go to the Phase 2. So as you see that there's not only 3 Phase 2s. Not all Phase 1s go to Phase 2s. And then we did one asbestos survey for you. Some of the properties that we tackle, one was 207 Sabinian Road. We know it as Gator Growers. This is very close to Camp Wiwa. This is a former nursery. Our Phase 1 identified at least 6 areas of concern, which required a Phase 2 field activities. Total amount invested is about $88,000. You're pretty much a city like on the grow. And we know you have sites like this dotting all your landscape, all nurseries that probably were past their life. This program may help tackle some of those properties. Another one we do is Apopka West Station Street, the triangle property. This was a combination of a laundry, dry cleaner, auto repair facility. The site is currently planned for residential uses, about $9,000. We're invested in that property. And this is the third one we're going to talk about is 444 Central Avenue. Again, another former laundry and dry cleaner place. We completed both phase one and phase two at a total cost of $33,000. But here's the great news. We actually went again because we had done such a great job and spent most of the over 70% of the money. We were able to go and ask for another grant before our current grant expired. So again, who do we talk to? The great city of Apopka, because Dr. Shakinya Harris Jackson here has been a great asset for our program. Which is great. You have some great staff here, but Dr. Shakinya Harris has just been phenomenal through these whole years, helping us with that. So we worked together. We met with Kissimmee again. Now we're doing a lot of work in South Brevard County with cities of Palm Bay and Little Growers. And they like it so much that after rejecting us for so many years, they said, well, you guys did the work. So I'm going to give you $1.5 million. So that's about 2.5 times more than what they gave us last time. So yeah, clap. More money for a pop guy. So now we're going to have a 4-year timeline. Our priority areas are going to be again within Apopka, Kissimmee, Palm Bay, and South Melbourne. We're a planning council. We cover an 8-county area, so we may go outside of our cities. It's part of our duty. So what I want to do here first, our main activity is going to be the property assessments. So as a coalition member, this is what Apopka did really effectively. Like Apopka had a property every meeting, pretty much. You basically identify sites and make the contacts so we can actually go into the property. It wouldn't be me. We hire a consultant, and the consultant has to have what is signed permission from the owner to be able to assess the property and get the phase one done. So what we need to identify is additional properties in target areas that could be assessed. You are all in the community. You're welcome. If you know a property within any of your districts that may be a brownfield, you can always give us a call, and we can definitely verify that for you. But our target area really is going to be the downtown CRA, Main Street corridor. There are a lot of fantastic things happening in Apopka, and we know because of that, there's new residential development. We will benefit from having a strong city center. So priority sites is 604 East Main Street. It's a vacant site. I guess the property burned down there. So it's one of the ones we're going to be looking at. And we have the old Sonoka station. I think we actually saw it on the way in at 485 East Main Street. So those are going to be the first 2 properties we're going to try to target to this program, which will mean we'll have to make a lot of calls to make sure we have the owners. Very important thing, we have, as the way the grant works, you need to have strong community involvement. And the way that is represented is what is called the Brownfield Advisory Committee. This is the committee that serves as a liaison between us, the agency, and your local communities. So each community is asked to please nominate new members. These are the members from the previous back. There's been changes, there's commissioner. I would love to have Ms. Williams as part of my back committee, I'm just saying. But what we want is basically, it has to be comprised of residents from target areas and people that live within the community. So that's something that to think about. If you need to add new members, if you want to keep this, there's no problem with that.
Are those members still active if you tap upon them? 'Cause I recognize some of the names.
We only meet twice a year, so it's hard to say how engaged they are. So some people come in and fall off. It's a 3-year program. So pretty much we're gonna be communicating with them again because hey, we got a new grant. So we haven't been able to have the back meeting because we're closing the old grant and getting the new grant ready. If you want to add another person, what we're gonna be trying to do this year, we are called the Resilient Corridors Initiative. We want to not only do community events, we want to do very hands-on activities with the community when it comes to brownfields, and I want my back members to be part of that. So if you know somebody that you think will be a really good member, has the expertise, tell Dr. Harris Jackson, and we'll definitely add the person, even if you get these numbers here.
Okay, because I recognize some of the names there.
No.
Okay.
So that's the end of my presentation. Again, thank you for hosting us, and we're really, really, really excited about this program and the opportunities for the city of Apopka. I will take any questions if there are any.
So,
Any question? Okay,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, go ahead. Question.
So these have been determined as brownfield, so you're gonna go in there,
Yeah.
first phase is to,
The first phase is actually it's really interesting. They're gonna do a site visit. They're also gonna look at the history of the site to determine, like, well, maybe it's a store now, but 5 years ago, or like 10, 15 years ago, it was a dry cleaner or repair facility. So those are kind of the clues that it gives you. They also conduct a set of interviews with people that may know. So these are really vast reports. I'm talking about 100 pages. Once you identify what is called the recognized conditions, you basically go in and you do the phase two. The phase two is some type of monitoring and sampling. So that's when they actually go and actually, if you have, for example, an abandoned gas station, the first thing they're going to want to certify is that those tanks were taken out of the property. Because if those tanks were not taken out of the property, they could be leaking into the soil. So that requires a much more throughout analysis to really go in and deep down into the property. Sometimes then if properties, I think that happened with that site, they may have, because it's an older building and it's going to be demolished, it probably has asbestos. So there's have to be like a whole survey done by the federal government to make sure that it's actually disposed the way it's supposed to be. And these are all activities. We cannot do cleanups, but the phase one and the phase two, if we can contact the state to see if there are voluntary tax credits or anything else that actually is going to help you clean up that property. By the way, and this is very important, anytime as a city you acquire a property, you, before doing that, you have to do a phase one. If you don't do the phase one and the property is found that is contaminated, you're not going to be able to access federal funds for the cleanup. So remember, anytime, I know these usually go in your consent agenda,
yeah.
but anytime you buy any property, be sure you get that phase one done. It's very, very important.
Okay.
Any other questions for Lewis?
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, no, go ahead, Ms. Williams.
Okay.
So it's only the CRA areas only.
No. Our target area
Okay.
is the CRA, but again, we're the council.
Okay.
I don't mind if there's a property outside of the CRA, we should be able to do that for you in the next 4 years with no issue. What we don't want is a situation where we say we have a target area and we go, all our analysis are outside. That's usually what EPA is not going to have. They don't want to see that. But for example, for this previous grant, we went outside our core cities. We did a couple of analysis in Palm Bay, and that's why Palm Bay is one of our members. We did also analysis in Groveland CRA. That was another one that we did. So if you have any, what you think especially very important about this program, one, is it a catalyst site? Is it a site that when you develop it, it's going to generate new economic activity? That's going to be like a multiplier. Two, very important, is in an underserved area, an area that doesn't receive the attention. EPA for this grant was very specific about targeting underserved communities under Justice 40. We're going to keep that commitment to the next 4 years. That's going to be very important to us. Doesn't mean that we cannot go outside, though.
Thank you.
Member Williams?
Yes. Could you talk about a little bit more about the significance of once the phase one or phase two is done and why that's a benefit, particularly if you have a developer or somebody interested in the property?
Anytime you do any bank transaction, like a commercial transaction, you need to have a phase one done. That's a requirement of a lot of banks. So that's gonna be your entrance. So
Mm.
if I with this grant save you easily $5,000-7,000, it's a cost that as a developer you're not gonna have. Now, if we recognize we had this situation in Longwood. Longwood had a couple of developments around 1792, and one of them was near a utility area. So the phase two was really important to determine that was that site, did they have any contamination? Just clearing that away is going to help the developer feel that they can really come in and invest the money that they need. A lot of development usually doesn't happen because of there's something wrong with the property. Like we
Or there's a fear that
yeah.
there is a, so that's the benefit of it too, because a lot of folks say the gas station, for example, may not even be interested in it because they assume that there's environmental, maybe do a phase one and it's not. So if that's already been done, then that's an effort, for the CRA or whoever to kind of offer those properties as, being
Mhm.
already phase one, phase two perform, or if a phase one is done and no phase two is needed, then it's safer and less expensive
Now,
for them to
I'm
come
not sure how much if you're like actually investing any money in property acquisition.
in. Mm-hmm.
Again, any property you're thinking of acquiring, the phase one and the phase two will be done for you, and will save much necessary city funds that will spend somewhere. And in the case there's an issue, you're probably gonna be able to go either for a federal cleanup grant or use like one of the state programs. Developers, and it's really interesting. Florida has a brownfields program too. But the issue with the state of Florida, the way it does it, you have to designate the property as a brownfield. It's like basically going to the dress shop and finding a dress and telling, yeah, you have to wear this ugly dress. Oh, because that's what we're telling people. Our program doesn't do that. Our program is just we see a property, we think it may have issues. You don't have to designate it as a brownfield. We'll just go in and do the analysis for you. You know, and that's usually that people feel more comfortable doing that.
So obviously you're saying that we have to reach out to the owner of that property.
I will have a consultant that can at some point that
We'll reach
will
out
do
to
that.
the,
Yeah, if you know the person, yeah, it helps. But sometimes these sites that are owned by companies that are not even in Florida. But we will try our best to reach out to these property owners to make sure, see, are you really interested in having resident this property? Do you really want to pay taxes on a vacant property? You know what I mean?
and what has been your response? Have the owners been uh, amenable to this, or has anyone said no?
I
We're not
told you a story
interested.
to inform that question. Um, most owners have been amenable to it. When we applied to the regional site, though, we had a dry cleaning site in downtown Kissimmee, and then the property changed. It was so long between the time that we designated the property and used the property versus the time that it came somebody else bought it, and they got alarmed because they basically had no idea that they were used for the grant and that they were not interested. 6 months later, the economic development person comes to me and asks me, well, this company, this new business went in and paid $15,000 to do this analysis. Can you pay for it? And I'm like, no, that's not how it works. You have to use my consultant because that's the consultant that I chose. And it was the same people. And it was just interesting because they could have saved that amount of money. Money doesn't grow on trees. And out of all the properties that we tried to assess, that was the only one we had issues. And they came back after the fact, asking for money.
Member Drago. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Uh, the recipient of the grant is the planning council.
Yes.
Okay. And the planning council has a approved list of contractors or consultants that does phase 1 and 2?
No, we have to take this to bid, and it's currently in the bid process. We submitted, I believe, October 15 was when we posted it in our website, approximately, and it's gonna go until November 18. We know there are companies that are interested, and we will go through that voting process. The way it works is that we as a council, because I'm gonna be the person that have to work with the consultant, it's gonna be me, my executive director, and my finance person. We're gonna be evaluating. Dr. Harris Jackson is gonna be the Apopka representative, and then we're gonna have the other cities and the nonprofit are gonna be there too. We will come together. We have to EPA. We have a whole set of metrics that we ask for the evaluation on. Cost is one of them. That's about 25% of what they want us to get the points on. We are gonna do our best. We'll each member will rank the firms on different categories, and we'll have a composite score. And whoever like goes above the median, or basically not above the median, but actually whoever's like the highest will be selected.
And does phase 1 include soil borings?
Solar farms. The solar farm, is it a solar farm that is in work, or is it a solar farm that you think you want
I
to
think he
track a
said
solar
soil boring.
soil
Borings,
boring?
Yes.
No. Sorry, I think the soil boring is actually phase 2.
phase 2, okay.
My apologies for that.
Oh, that's okay.
Any other?
I just had, and I appreciate your presentation, and thank you, Dr. Jackson, for making this happen and coordinating it as well. So you have $1.5 million. That's going to be mostly spent on identifying properties and conducting phase 1 or phase 2s and providing that to the owners of the properties.
Mhm.
From there, that provides access to Florida funds, federal funds for those owners to be able to get after it.
If there's contamination, yes.
Okay.
If the property is clear of contamination, the property owner can move forward
Sure.
and do whatever they need. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and depending what the strategies for your CRA, you may have other incentives that you may want to provide with them. But you
So
know,
that $1.5 million is exclusively used for phase 1s and phase 2s.
no, the actual contract it's gonna for the RFQ is about $1,060,000. So, like the vast majority of the grant will go to for those assessments. We have separated about $400,000 approximately for my staff to run the program, because we're
Gotcha.
gonna be doing really aggressive reach out to the community,
Sure.
and we're very thankful that we got so much money, because before we were not able to do it. Is the difference for us between basically meeting with your Chamber of Commerce versus actually hosting a workshop with your Chamber of Commerce to explain brownfields and how the program would help.
Sure. Okay. Understood. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? All right.
I have one.
Okay.
The two properties you identified in the slide, are those the only two properties you're gonna do in Apopka?
What do you mean, sorry?
The two properties that you identified in the slides, are
Uh-huh.
those the only two you're gonna be doing in Apopka? or
No,
another?
those are our target properties. We see,
Target
remember, we always have that target property we want to do. Now we did 7 in Apopka because Apopka, Dr. Harris Jackson was aggressive. You know what I mean? And we're able to get. So we expect to do much more than 2. That's my hope. And my hope, what we found with Gator Growers, and that's a conversation I had with Mr. Howell. We know that we have some other abandoned nurseries. That for me, it couldn't be the target area because it was not in the Justice 40 block that we needed. It was just south of it. But we want to make sure part of what we're going to do as staff of the council, we are going to be identifying possible brownfields in all of our communities across East Central Florida and see where they're concentrated. And that's how we're going to start to reach out to this and actually build capacity. If I can do 10, we did 7 in Apopka. If I can do 10 in Apopka, 15 in Apopka, I will be super happy.
Okay.
Awesome. Luis, thank you for what you do for the East Central Florida Regional Planning Council, and we thank you for coming out to be with us in Apopka tonight.
Yeah,
So
love being
thank
here,
you.
especially
Yeah.
seeing my friend here. I haven't seen her in a while, so
Can
that
we
was a
have,
bonus.
Awesome.
can we have that presentation? Because we don't have it here.
Yes, I think staff has a copy of it, so it will be
Okay.
provided to you.
Yeah.
Yes, and my contact information as well as the contact information for my staff is also there. If you have
Awesome.
any other questions, okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Have a good day, everyone.
Okay. All right. Next up, Bobby.
And I'd just like to add thank you for the wonderful presentation. Thank you for coming this evening. All right, so I'd like to talk a little bit about the redevelopment plan. Since I've been tasked with being the interim executive director for the CRA, I've done a little bit of a deep dive into the 2017 update of the redevelopment plan. And, full disclosure, CRAs is not my background, it's not my realm of expertise, but I've read the redevelopment plan and I supplied you guys with some of my insights and thoughts and stuff on it. So, as you're well aware, the CRA is 633 acres in size, and the boundaries go west to Hawthorne Avenue, north to Oak Street, east to approximately Sheeler Avenue, and south to 10th, 11th Street, and has been in existence since 1993. CRA is responsible for developing and implementing the community redevelopment plan. The plan includes overall goals for redevelopment in the area, as well as identifying the types of projects that are planned for the area. As you've heard from Commissioner Moore this evening as well, the CRA was originally established in 1993, and there was a 1993 redevelopment plan, and then that was updated in 2017. And it's my understanding that's the plan that we're currently operating off of is the 2017 update. According to the Florida Redevelopment Association, examples of traditional projects within a CRA redevelopment plan include streetscapes and roadway projects, neighborhood parks, sidewalks, and street tree plantings, to name a few. Plan can also include redevelopment incentives such as grants and loans for things such as facade improvements, which we do have facade improvement programs. We have about 7 programs that we currently allow reimbursements from. Sprinkler system upgrades, signs, and structural improvements. Those are some of the things that can be qualified for CRA reimbursements, according to the Florida Redevelopment Association. Redevelopment plan is a living document that can be updated to meet the changing needs within the CRA. However, the boundaries of the area cannot be changed without starting the process from the beginning. And so I said I went through the plan. This is the map of the CRA district. One of the things that really kind of stuck out to me is that there's a hodgepodge of future land uses within the CRA. And I've got the adopted future land uses that's in the CRA redevelopment plan right now. And quite frankly, a lot of these future land uses haven't been changed since 2017. We've had a few people who've come in and added mixed use on their properties downtown within the CRA. And that mixed use feature land use designation really allows quite a bit of opportunity. If you read the comprehensive plan currently, it says that mixed use can be applied within the CRA, and it allows a floor area ratio of up to 2, which allows a lot of building area on a piece of property. It allows a mix of uses. You can do residential, you can do commercial, you can do mixed use buildings, vertical mixed use, horizontal mixed use. It allows a lot of opportunities. And one of the things I noted is that basically the plan says that they recommended to change the CRA future land use designation to mixed use. It hasn't been done. We've had property owners come in on a case-by-case basis and do that. Not within the CRA, but just a little bit outside the CRA, heading towards the 451, we had a property owner who was inquiring about developing a hotel. They had a commercial future land use designation. They can only do a maximum FAR of 0.25, which is 25% of the site, quarter of the site could only be built with building. Disqualified them from their hotel plan at that point in time. However, that person's going to come back in and do a future land use change to mixed use, hopefully within the near future. I believe they said it was a home to suites hotel, so it'd be a nice addition near the 451 off ramp. So that's one of the main things. I went to the Redevelopment Association conference over in Tampa a couple weeks ago, and I learned some things. And I sat in a couple presentations. One was the City of Kissimmee. It was a joint presentation between the City of Kissimmee CRA and Merritt Island. And one of the things that they had both pointed out is within their CRA, they had one future land use designation, which was mixed use, and allowed a lot of redevelopment opportunities. That's one thing that in my professional opinion, I think would be beneficial here within the downtown and the CRA. Probably would help invite some reinvestment opportunities and redevelopment opportunities. It would open up a lot of opportunity for properties owners and would probably boost the value of their properties. A couple other things is that the CRA, the plan talks about it's not a very walkable environment. I think with the Winn-Dixie development that was across the street, that was noted as an opportunity zone within the redevelopment plan. And as you can see on this map here, this is right out of the redevelopment plan. There are 5 opportunity zones. Winn-Dixie was noted as 5, and it was intended, it suggested that it would be a mixed-use, walkable type development. However, it's kind of turned into an auto-centric development with a parking field in front, a grocery store. You have to drive to the grocery store. So that's one of the things where there has been missed opportunity, at least from my reading of the plan. Another thing, which is not really a surprise to anybody, is that the CRA is an economically depressed area. It refers to that within the plan, the per capita income, at least from 2017, is the median income is $30,576. This is right out of the plan from the year 2016, while the remainder of the city at 2016 numbers was $55,233. So there's obviously a big difference between income levels within the CRA. One of the things that we have started doing is the crime prevention with the police, community policing that is going on within the CRA. We budgeted $125,000 within the fiscal year for that. So one of the things that the staff is looking for is, number one, does the CRA board wish to do an update to the redevelopment plan? Or would you like to keep the redevelopment plan as it is and follow what's going on there? Or would you like to direct staff to look into the feasibility of at least changing the future land use of the CRA to mixed use, and then coming back with some findings for that? Ultimately, if that would be the direction, that would have to go through the planning commission and then the city council, and then a public input process. Probably would entail some public community visioning workshops. I think would be beneficial to have community input into that as well. We probably do have some property owners down here, some of our existing industrial uses that probably would have some questions, I would venture to say. But I think a community workshop visioning exercise would be good. It's my understanding when the redevelopment plan was prior to its adoption, there was a community visioning workshop, 2016, 2017 timeframe, when I went through the files and saw that. So, as I said, we're looking for direction and input and discussion from the CRA board. So I'll stop talking.
So
Any questions for Bobby? Okay.
I guess my first question is in regards to what Commissioner Moore stated out about substantially changing the plan. Does this apply to?
Yes, yeah, we would have to
We would have
work
to go
with the
back through
county
the-
on
okay.
that.
And in addition
yes.
to your agreement with the county, there's also state law that is going to trigger that too. That's going to trigger county involvement in that process, especially with expanding boundaries or expanding time.
Okay.
Mr. Blatt, or member
Okay,
Blatt?
so I did get your CRA, the plan observations. I
Mhm.
mean, it's 2 pages long back and front. But my question to you, and you reviewing it, there were 2 things. I did ask you about a CRA executive director. And you said the only time I can really ask for that, and I believe even the HR person, our HR director, also said that that was something that I needed to address
Mhm.
sitting at the CRA. I know that we received, I think we were the lowest in receiving Orange County funds. Was it like 660? And and that we can use that money to hire like a contractor to be specifically over the CRA. That's one question. Then the other one is, in your opinion, because you reviewed this and you did give a lot of recommendations, do you feel that our CRA redevelopment plan from 2017 is outdated?
Yes, it's outdated. The map, number one, there's a zoning map within the CRA redevelopment plan that shows our old zoning district. If you'll recall, and Commissioner, you were on the commission when the land development code was changed in 2019. We rezoned the whole downtown, extending out to the 451 to mixed use downtown. So that's not reflected in the redevelopment plan. It talks about some trends that were popular in the late teens, I'll call it now, the late 2010s, things have changed, we had a pandemic, so that kind of changed some things as well. But yeah, I think there needs to be an update to reflect, some
And,
modern
and
trends.
that would require a feasibility.
Yeah, we would have to hire a consultant to work on that. Feasibility, it would require a visioning session. I would definitely want to do a community visioning workshop for that within the
And that
CRA.
would be paid out of the funds of the CRA.
Yes, but through the budget of the CRA.
A feasibility study, what is that one?
I mean, that I don't know off the top of my head. I mean, I would venture to guess 50,000 or so.
Well, I mean, and also would the board consider
Mhm.
hiring a CRA executive director? I feel it would be someone that would be solely invested in the CRA rather than, I mean, you've done a good job to now, but you have other responsibilities.
Yep.
And part of why we were kind of put on probation is because the community director before you kind of was juggling a lot of different um, uh, jobs, I should say. And so I feel that at this point, we really need to try and concentrate just on the CRA
Mhm.
and have someone working on the CRA directly. So, uh, and from your recommendations, it, you're talking about really an overhaul
Mhm.
on the vision. And so for us to even vote to stay with the current vision, it would be, it just wouldn't serve us well or serve the CRA district well
Mhm.
because it's outdated.
Right. Like I said, I think, and I noticed two connects, Kissimmee, Merritt Island, they both said they had mixed use future land uses within their CRA. If the direction was to evaluate changing at least the future land use of the CRA to mixed use, city staff could internally work on that. We could do that in house. That wouldn't be a problem. Definitely, like I said, we would want to do some community visioning workshops. However, once that would be changed, you're not going to see improvements overnight. I mean, it's going to be an incremental thing. It's not going to be overnight. I mean, and the CRA has been in existence now for 31 years, and so change takes time. But I think it would help at least build a foundation for there to be at least some investment in the CRA. People would know what to expect when they bought a property. Oh, I know that I can do up to a 2 FAR, floor area ratio on a property. I can do mixed use. I can do a laundry list of things.
And when do we have to go before Orange County to show some?
If I remember the agreement, we have to send them like basically a list of the projects that have been funded through the TIF 90 days after the adoption of the city's budget. Working with the finance director and the recreation director on the list of that right now. And then that would be sent. I have a contact at the county. Her name escapes me right now that I've been working on with the CRA.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Here it says to extend the CRA with the potential extent to January 1st, 2034, approving the First Amendment to the interlock. What's the date on that? I guess I'll have to ask
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
I mean, member, would you have that information, Drago? Mr. Drago?
I have a plethora of documents, and I believe that was a resolution.
Can you make sure your mic's on?
Seven something. Ordinance 7 something. Oh, sorry, thank you. The city adopted resolution 9316 and ordinance 783. It basically lays out the functions of the CRA, the authority of the CRA relative to expenditures of money. And it establishes which you have to do in order to get the TIF money, that this area that you're proposing to incorporate a CRA is blighted. Because the purpose of the CRA, the main purpose, is to eliminate blight. What it doesn't address is to eliminate visual pollution, which is up and down that corridor. The minute you enter the corridor heading north and coming south on 441. So those are the two documents that the city adopted, and the adoption date was June 1993 on the resolution, and June 28, 1993 on the ordinance. And then the county more or less granted the permission for the city to have the TCRA relative to accumulating the TIF money from the county. The county could have easily said, you can have your CRA, but it's your TIF money, not mine. And that's common throughout the state. But the counties saw a benefit to having the TIF money collected by the county and given to the city in order to use it to improve the CRA.
Yeah, but we were put on probation. I just want to know what's the date that we have to have some kind of movement going on.
It's my understanding it was a 3-year, we got a 3-year extension
Yeah.
for the CRA
extension?
with the option to go 7.
Is your mic on?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's section 2B, beginning with the calendar year 2024 within 90 days of the close of the city's fiscal year. The city shall provide an annual update to the county regarding the CRA activities and the use of the TIF.
Yeah, and that's what I was referencing, Commissioner or Board Member, is that we have to provide that within 90 days of the adoption of the budget. And I think her name is Sherry, the county I spoke with. And she said that a letter would suffice outlining the expenditures for the TIF.
Yeah.
Bobby,
something
can you
just-
just speak a little
yeah, I was
louder?
just-
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
now
Yeah.
I can hear you.
Something went bonkers.
Boost it up a little bit. There we go.
Okay, Member Williams?
Just a quick question. When you were at the conference, did you by chance, just notice maybe how many of the CRAs had dedicated CRA managers or directors? Was it a majority or was it mixed?
Yes, ma'am. It was a majority. City of Kissimmee had one. Merritt Island had the Merritt Island guy was economic development and CRA manager. I know locally, I believe there are some that just have a dedicated CRA. Mount Dora, I think the guy is a CRA director or manager, whatever they're called. So, and some here in Orange County, I believe as well. Yes.
And then my other question was with the change in the future land use, would that be in a manner where the zoning wouldn't be inconsistent with that future land use? Or would then a property owner have to rezone to be consistent? And would some type of overlay be better in the situation, or just trying to?
Right. So actually, what we have right now is an inconsistency in some cases. So we have a mixed-use downtown zoning, which was adopted in 2019 in our land development code and rezoned a whole plethora of properties. But they have underlying future land uses in some cases of industrial or commercial, and they can't quite enjoy the zoning that the code allows. So we have kind of the opposite. So really, if we did the mixed use future land use, we would probably correct a lot of those inconsistencies.
And then maybe if that is the direction that this goes, maybe it's a targeted approach too, because I know in some instances where the intent is there, right, but then you have these inconsistencies that are created, and now the burden is on the property owner still to try to get it rezoned or change the future land use, or they can't because the size of the property for whatever reason they can't meet the requirements, and so you kind of still have this conundrum where they can't develop.
Right.
So I think it's a good idea, but I think a lot of times I've seen that municipalities, they do it wholesale and then it defeats the purpose. So if there's a way, if we do take that approach to be more targeted and deliberate about what has what designation and whether it can actually be usable without requiring somebody to go through another process to potentially use it, because then that's just another you know, not lack that doesn't incentivize people then to develop and you know increase the tax dollars that we'd like to see. So
Understand, yeah, absolutely, and that could be part of the, you know, where we have the community workshops where we kind of giving out, you know, here's what this would allow, here's what you have currently, you know, this is what you would get, and then kind of take a targeted approach. Legally, we'd probably have to notify property owners also that their future land uses are being changed. All the property owners within the CRA, we want to make sure we dot all the I's and cross all the T's and do everything correct.
And do we have to have the authority, the approval
The authority.
from the landowners? Do we have to have their approval to change that?
I mean, it would be basically like we did the mixed use downtown, it's my understanding, but we would probably want to just err on the side of caution and notify everybody.
Member Drago?
Thank you, Matt, Mayor. I've had a couple of conversations with Mr. Howell over the plan, so I may say some things that I may have not said to him. So when I worked for the city of Daytona Beach, I oversaw 5 CRAs. So I know what works and what doesn't work. So, and I'm going to briefly go down the list that Mr. Howell provided. Number one, there's too many overlay zones or districts in the CRA. And what happens after a while, the developer or the public gets confused as to what overlays do I use. And overlays to me is just a lazy way not to amend the code for the residents and the developers to understand what the rules and regulations are. Number two, if you want to reduce development cost and you want to make it user friendly, then besides eliminating the overlay zones, you need to eliminate zoning, particularly in that CRA district. So as long as you establish a development district, and you can name it any name you want, CRA, Apopka Village, Apopka Hamlet, the commission can only set in motion specific land uses and the development code relative to the land uses. Now, I know Mr. Howell is recommending only one land use, which is mixed use downtown, but I think there should be at least 2 additional land uses to protect the residential areas. With the mixed use downtown, I think there has to be a restriction on the type of uses that is permitted in that corridor. For instance, you don't want a car wash in that corridor. You don't want storage buildings in that corridor. If the intent is to attract locals to come in and develop, whether it's mom and pop restaurants, convenience stores, etc., then those uses need to be put in the development code and not allow any other uses other than the ones that are in there. Mr. Howell also stated that there's structures in there that are 59 years old. Now, in looking at the plan, on page 23, the plan identifies 4 structures that are on the National Register of Historic Places. Now, I took a quick glance at the code, and I don't see in it any provision that protects those historic structures on the register. And the federal government's intent when you grant the register is to protect those structures, specifically from demolition. Because when somebody buys those structures and they want to they want to demolish them because they want to put up a new modern structure, or they want to demolish it in order to have a vacant lot, that shouldn't be an option for them. So I did a little research. And I asked the question of the city. And the question is, if the house located on 21 East Orange Street, which is on the National Register, by the way, were to apply for a demolition permit, and the application was submitted completely, would the city issue the demolition permit? The answer is, I believe it's possible, as we have online permitting now, and we wouldn't know if the house or business were on the register. So there's a disconnect there, and I, without going back and looking at the federal requirements, I think you have an issue, and there has to be a protection. So whatever new development code that you put in place, there has to be a component for for those historical structures. Now, the component for the historical structures should include a structural forensic audit. And that's a process where a developer has to come in and justify why the structure needs to be demolished. And he has to have an engineer's report to show it can't be fixed. So the city should be able to ascertain, oh, I think it can be fixed if you use these techniques. The other thing the code should include, because we're in the year 2024 and some of these structures may have some sort of material that is not, that you can't purchase today, but you want to maintain the look, especially windows and doors, then the code should allow current building materials to be used. So if a structure has wood windows and you don't make wood windows anymore, and they have the rope with the balls that you can't raise them up and down, then you can allow them to use vinyl or aluminum as long as it's the proper color and it keeps the exterior intent of the building intact. So the code should contain those two sections. Okay, the building parking placement. Okay, so Mr. Howe stated here that, and I agree with him, the building should be in the front and parking should be in the back. However, the Winn-Dixie site, if I remember correctly, required a lot of fill. And therefore, that prohibited a pedestrian-friendly access to the facility. Because if you're on the sidewalk, you got to walk up a steep driveway to get there. And I'm not sure, given the topography of the property, if that building could have been put to the street, given the elevation. And I think the Miller Ale House is the same way. Let's see, Mr. Howell also said block continuity. Typically in CRAs, you don't want a block to be greater than 2,000 feet long. And you want to keep a grid system, and that kind of pinches the lot sizes down within that block. Signs, I agree with Mr. Howell. There needs to be some, not necessarily entrance signs that says welcome to the city of Apopka, because that's further down 436 and 441. If you want them to know that you're in the CRA, then some signage could be welcome to the Apopka Village or welcome to the Apopka Hamlet. So that tells the person they're in a designated area of importance. The other thing I noticed in the plan, and I'm not saying this to be contradictory or to be, is that some of the pictures that were in the plan, specifically of sidewalks, depicted the sidewalks as not being clean. So therefore, if somebody gets this document outside the city and reads it, picture's worth 1,000 words. So they're going to say, am I moving into an area where the sidewalks are dirty? The other picture that was in here showed trails, and the trail showed asphalt instead of concrete. So if you wanted to add a value-added accessory, which trails are, it needs to be done in concrete. So if anybody comes into the city and wants to develop in the CRA, you can use that as a value-added accessory for their development. And concrete's easier to clean, and there's a lot of tinting that you can do to concrete if you want to establish a certain color. The floor area ratio that Mr. Howell recommended, 2.0, would be, in my opinion, excessive because you have drainage issues. So you want to have the property hold as much drainage as possible and not put everything into the roadway. And that would go for parking. Wherever possible, there's new techniques out on unpaved parking areas. So those would help absorb the runoff. So the only thing that would be hard surface would be the handicap parking. Now, as far as the median income is concerned, probably back when that study was done, that's probably the correct number. But today, when a developer comes and looks at the city and decides, I want to build something, they normally calculate the median income in a 5-mile radius. And there's a certain target number they're looking for. And if it doesn't hit the target number, they're not going to develop. If it hits the target number, they'll develop. So the city eventually is going to have to ascertain what is that target number, because you can use it as advertising in case somebody comes in and wants to build. Mr. Howell talked about demolition of substandard structures. Well, if it's not in on the historic register, that's probably okay. Public participation. I think Mr. Howell's point is correct. There needs to be a visioning process, and the stakeholders, that is the residents and the businesses and the CRA, that's their livelihood. They're investors, and they should be treated as investors, and their investment needs to be protected. So therefore, if they come up with a vision, whatever that vision looks like, the city, in my opinion, is obligated to put that into code, develop it, and implement it. And don't provide any loopholes to developers in order to get around the code. The code is the code. You meet it, you get approved. If you don't, you don't. And there's a lot of local governments use PD zoning, and that's just an insidious process to get around the development code. Let me see, what else? Guidelines, okay. He recommends form-based code, not a problem with that. Now, the land acquisition and selling and leasing of public lands. All right, so here's the issue with CRAs. There's only two philosophies in CRAs. One philosophy, in order to eliminate blight, is I'm going to spend the money to improve infrastructure. Infrastructure is water, sewer, and reuse and drainage. Why? Because that reduces development costs to the developer. If this local government decides I want to buy the blighted property, if you can't amass a large number of property, you buy little lots here, little lots there. First thing is it's taken off the tax rolls. And the second thing is, under Florida law, you need to send out an RFP, which means request for problems, in order to sell or lease the property. That's an extra step that's unnecessary. Let's see. Oh, and also, as far as marketing promotions are concerned, you funded the Apopka Main Street, and their responsibility to put on events. So if the CRA is redesigned and the plan is remodeled, that helps their purpose. As far as streetscapes are concerned, Mr. Howell put in here, you can make improvements such as decorative street lighting, street furniture, unified signage, sidewalks, etc. Well, I can tell you from experience that the public normally does not recognize those improvements if the corridor is blighted. The I focuses on the blighted areas. They focus on the utility lines going across the road. They focus on the big utility lines along 441 through the major town. So you can do brick sidewalks, you can put fancy benches in, whatever you want to do. The traveling public is not going to notice that. And especially the transient customers, which the businesses want to try to siphon into their business, that they're going to keep going because they just visually they don't see where it's that corridor is safe. Okay, so with that said, Mr. Chairman, let me run over a couple of items. I don't want to take up too much time relative to what I believe should go into the plan. And from the plan, you develop the code. So I first talked about providing in the code some sort of regulations to protect those structures on the National Register. I talked about eliminating zoning and overlays, and you only have one code. The code is the code. You don't have to try to figure out who's on first and what's on second. Also, I think it's important that the code be written in such a way that a person with a high school education should be able to read and understand the code. And if the city can't meet that criteria, we're in trouble. Okay, so as far as the development process is concerned, you want to try to reduce the time it takes to get the development approved. Now, I remember back in the day in Broward County, it was 18 months just for a simple development. Some cities take as much as that, some are less. So if the development process was streamlined relative to the code and eliminating the extra bureaucracy of zoning and the rest of the stuff that goes with it, then the process should be, or the code should be one that is should establish an organizational culture of facilitation, not regulation. You reduce the approval time. So if they follow the code properly, somebody should be able to walk in and in 45 days get their site plan approved. That should be the target if the code is written in such a way and they abide by the code. The code should be clear and precise. It should be purpose driven and protect investors' property assets, which in turn provides predictability to the private sector. Because as I said before, everybody that owns a business in the CRA or a house, they're investors. They're not taxpayers and they're not voters. They're investors. And if you view them as investors, then your decision-making process is based on economics, not on politics. All right, now, one of the big issues, and I looked at the PowerPoint that the city presented to the county, and the first thing I noticed was the facade program. And I think in a 10-year period, the city spent $154,000. 49,000 and change came from the private sector. So my question would become, for the $150,000, what did the city get? Visually, what did the city get? So a more comprehensive program would be a curb appeal program, or CAP. Now that program is designed to take the business's TIF money and reinvest it into their property. So when I looked at the budget, the revenue was $1.1 million. You get 500 from the city, 500 from the county. So if the board were to allocate at, let's say, $500,000 a year, and you would spend no more than $50,000, you can improve 10 businesses in a year. And you would not ask for any matching funds because it's their money you're reinvesting into their business. And given the business economy today, who's going to contribute 25% of whatever the cost is? So that particular program um, would allow these particular improvements to be made. Cost of new windows, doors, awnings, siding, paint, stonework, signage, and landscaping. Now, whenever you do a development code, I think Mr. Howell will agree with you that the biggest sticking point is always signage. I want the biggest sign with the gaudiest color because I just think that's advertising, but it's not, because in today's environment, that those that have fancy phones and you put in an address, when you get there, the phone says you reach your destination. It doesn't say you reached 15 Main Street. So in essence, maybe signage is becoming superfluous, but that's a visual pollution. Signage is a visual pollution. So if that program was adopted, and there's a specific sequence of events that has to be followed, you would see instant gratification relative to the appearance of that corridor. So if you go down that corridor, you've got a hotel, you've got a shopping center with a laundromat, you've got a gas station, you got Burger King, you have a mismatch of stuff, and you have a mismatch of colors and architectural styles. So the purpose of it would be to try to get some harmony among all those things. The next thing I think the code should allow would be to allow some increased densities and to use what's known as an adaptive use policy. So an adaptive use policy is basically, there's an old gas station, the old gas station down the road. So let's say somebody wanted to take that structure and they wanted to convert it into another use other than a gas station. So what's local governments normally do? First thing they're going to do is they're going to require you to meet their parking requirements. And if they can't meet the parking requirements, it means the developer can't develop the property. So by using adaptive use policy, they get to use the building and the parking that accompanies the building. So my next item would be you have to abolish parking minimums because that reduces development costs. Because the question is this, and I've asked this question many times, I never get an answer. So here's the questions. What is the premise behind parking regulations? Does the government know more than developers about parking needs for their developments? If so, how? I don't get answers to those. I don't get answers to those questions. On a cost basis, without the cost of the property, national average, a single parking space surface is $25,000. If it's in a garage, it's $35,000. And most cities believe that if the first parking space is $25,000, the 10th is $25,000. Doesn't work that way. It's not linear, it's exponential. So, and the parking requirements are the largest single impediment to infill development in CRAs. And it's the biggest development cost is parking. So if that's eliminated, now you can start to see how that opens up not only vacant property, but buildings that have been sitting there for quite a number of years and not being used. And if you want the locals to develop, then you substantially reduce their development costs. And the last thing I would mention is this. There's a concept called Authorized Home and Retail Design Catalog. So what is that concept? That concept is for the local government to identify vacant property, and then they develop a catalog with templates that has structures in it, houses or businesses. The structures or the building plans would include paints, colors, so everything is in harmony. It would include an architectural style that would meet whatever the neighborhood is. And the only thing that the developer would have to pay for would be the cost of the property and the surveyor. So when the city develops the catalog with the template building plans, the developer gets those plans free. That's a big cost savings. And he gets a permit immediately because the city has already established those building plans to meet code. So you can use that plan for ADUs, single family houses, whether it's various sizes of bedrooms, duplexes, 6-unit apartments, small retail establishments. And why that program I think would be beneficial is because it would complement the existing CRA assistance program and offer value added services to the city's business retention and expansion program. Because if the city is going to continue to have an economic development department, you would want the developers to come to the department and shop once, not go around and figure out what's going on. So the economic development department would not only do the data collection, but they would be able to locate the vacant property. They would be able to develop the catalog, but more importantly, they should pay a visit to the banks and talk to the underwriters to figure out what properties or what businesses would you lend money to. And that's important for when businesses come in here. Do you think I could get a loan for this? Well, yes, I think you can. And here's 5 banks, go visit them. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you.
How concise.
Anybody else?
That was really in depth. Yeah.
Can you, or is there some? Can you send us
Yeah.
something along that?
I'll send it to the, of course, you know, this is not a public document. No, it's
It
not.
will be when you send it.
Yeah, I'll send it to Ms. Bone and she'll distribute it to all the members.
Awesome.
I have a quick question.
Mhm.
So the money that we allocated, $50,000 that we allocated for Main Street, what was it, Main Street?
Right. I don't
Can
think
that-
we gave that money yet.
We didn't give it to him yet, but we put it in the budget.
Right.
So is that something that can come out the CRA? Because I think it was it was the marketing promotion.
I don't think Main Street was in the budget for the CRA. I think
CRA.
it was in the general fund budget.
General fund budget. What I'm
Yes.
asking is, can we remove it?
State law has changed since you've adopted this plan, and the
Okay.
marketing activities are not, they're not we're not as able to do them as we were when your plan was created. So
Got
you
it.
probably could not do what your plan contemplates there.
All right. Thank you. That was a question.
All right.
All right. So the direction would be, would you like for us to pursue update to the redevelopment plan or keep as is, or?
We need to.
We need to.
I think so, and I think we ought to try to put together a nice workshop at the community center
Okay.
and talk about some of these changes, and we can incorporate some of the things that
Mhm.
Member Drago was talking about, and kind of lay out and I think we need to do a real good job of making sure that the CRA property owners get notified that this could really impact, hopefully in a positive way, your property. So
Mhm.
let's get with IT and
Okay.
try to put together a nice from not only social media but also print and every other way to get some things out there. So we'll come up with a date that works.
Yeah.
How much time do you think you need?
Well, we got the holidays coming up.
So you want to do it
probably
January
after the
then?
holidays,
Okay.
January, February-ish. Yeah.
So sometime in January we put together
Yeah.
okay.
And maybe that could double as the CRA meeting as well. That workshop could.
have-
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
Okay, does that sound good? Everybody
Okay,
good with that?
but yeah, before you do that, what about the
Member-
CRA executive director?
You want to take that one?
Mr. Chairman, if I could
Wait,
interrupt.
we've got 2 other people first.
Okay, I'm
Hang on.
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, well, I was going to say is we've got some good candidates for Because as it is right now, the community development director is also our CRA executive director. The plan was to hire this individual and have this individual be a part of figuring out what we're going to do with the CRA executive. We're looking for somebody that would have experience with CRA, economic development planning, and so I think that individual will be the good person to champion that. So whether we have an individual CRA, executive director, manager, whatever we want to call it, or if it can be absorbed like it has been with the community development director, or if it's still within the community development department and a position within that, we will have those discussions. In fact, that'll probably be a priority for that community development director when we hire them.
I don't know if
Yeah,
that's
that's
a
pretty
yes or
nebulous.
no.
That's pretty nebulous.
I don't know if that's a yes or no. I just think it's important.
It's a
only
maybe.
Because it has shown for me in my time here, and he's done, you know, a good job in taking it over. But beforehand, the community that he really was, he had too many, he was juggling a lot of responsibilities. And so what was happening to the CRA was no one was really overseeing it directly, and I feel like we were kind of moving very slowly, and there were times where just nothing was done, and there wasn't a follow up and a persistence to kind of move things forward. And at this stage, look where we're at right now, which is this is outdated. So
Yeah, and I don't know the history behind that, but yeah, that will be part of the discussion. You know, we have some strategic planning that we're moving forward. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry.
you said discussion.
Yeah, that'll be part of the discussion when we have this other individual on board. I just feel like we have to have this one other team member so we can get whoever it is their insight as well as their buy-in, because they're going to be the individual ultimately over this.
Okay,
Member Williams?
so that's a yes.
I just had a quick comment. Also, maybe in advance of the workshop or work session or at the work session, if you could maybe present just so people can get a sense of local CRAs and what they've done, like, you know, Winter Garden downtown, they've done a really good job. So just maybe some examples locally that people can relate to and kind of see what those successful CRAs look like.
And maybe the two that you mentioned, was it,
Kissimmee
Kissimmee
and
and-
Merritt Island.
yeah.
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 Yep.
Okay. And remember, Drago, you had something?
Oh, Winter Garden.
Yep. very good.
That's
Yeah, I always thought that the CRA duties and functions are an integral part of economic development. So therefore, I think, in my opinion, the city would behoove itself if they identified a person for the economic development department. Part of the duties would be the CRA. And I think from a planning perspective, I know when Mr. Hitt was here, he served too many masters. And you just can't serve all those masters and be effective. Something's got to give. And the biggest issue you have is the time component. I mean, you can hire accountants to do your work, you can hire lawyers to do your work, you can hire this to do your work. But one thing you can't hire is people to manage your time. You're the only one that can do that. So I understand that Mr. Hitt's position is open and you're interviewing, but if the other position is open, which is my understanding, then I think you could probably advertise where the two are linked together as far as duties and responsibilities, and you can call it whatever you want to call it. But I think that particular person, if it's hired with those two functions, will serve the city and the residents better than if it's attached to the planning development director.
All right.
I agree with that.
Anybody else? Okay.
All right. So we will schedule a community workshop that will double as a CRA meeting in the new year, January, February timeframe.
You got it.
All right. So next item is just an overview. Actually, it's more informational item. This is just included in everybody's packets, the amounts that have been given out for the projects that we have within the CRA, not the projects, the reimbursement projects. As you can see, the dollar total. So I just provided that for informational purposes as well. Any questions?
Any questions?
Do you have any update on the Station Street project, the multifamily?
Yes,
Oh.
there's none. I've not heard anything from the developer. I've reached out to them and I've not heard anything back. So I will follow up with a phone call. I've done emails, so follow up with a phone call as well.
What's
I'm sorry, because I did ask that yesterday.
Yeah, what's the next step? Where were we at with them? What did we approve, and what's their deadline to?
So you got a development agreement that was approved back. Let's see, it was executed on 31st day of July, and so there are timelines contained within it as an exhibit. Project schedule. So it says construction site plans or major development submittal July through September 2024. Staff has not received anything on that one. Construction site plan October, November 2024. Plat November 2024. Site and building permits December 2024 to February 2025. Pre-construction meeting with the city engineer December of 2024. Ground site work January 2025, and public plaza completion on lot 2 January 15, 2026. But as of right now, we've not heard from the developer. We had a meeting with them several months ago where they were inquiring about the major development plan submittal, but they've not submitted anything to us.
So is there a deadline of? I know that that's a calendar, of the timelines that their goals are. Is there a deadline that everything expires?
That I don't know. I don't know if Ms. Drew, if you're familiar with this, and I know you're
Not familiar enough.
involved in
I
this one.
worked on a little bit back at the time, and I don't remember enough of it to get to speak off the top of my head now.
And do you, anyone remember whether or not, because wasn't there like a deed given to them, but was that done in advance, or was there a reverter clause in there that if they didn't do certain things within a certain time frame, the property could go back to the city?
That I don't know.
I think
There
so.
was-
I hope so.
I think you're right.
I hope so.
Remember we-
Okay.
It is,
Yeah.
it's in there. It's in there.
It's
Yes.
That was one of the
okay.
things
Yeah,
that I
yeah,
think there was a.
Yes.
it's in there.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
and what
you.
I could do is I could go through the DA and then provide like a bullet point, and I could get with Drew and him and Andrew Hand, who worked on it, and just make sure everything is good
And then
before I
if you
send that
get
to
a
you.
response from Mark
Yes.
Wilkie,
Mhm.
just so
Yep.
we can send
Yes.
that out to the members.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Yeah, and follow up with an email so we have it
Right.
as public
Yes.
record rather than a phone.
Yeah, and I've emailed.
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
That development, did it require a land use change?
Had a commercial future land use, and it did not require a land use change, if I recall. They did. I don't think they even did a PUD. I can't remember. I have to go back and do the details, but I don't remember a land use change on that one. I think it met the threshold within the comp plan of the 15 units an acre within the commercial future land use.
All right.
All right.
Thanks everybody for coming out.
Thank you.